What's going down, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Commander Ad Populum Podcast. My name's Ryan. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for following me on Twitter, retweeting my first ever tweet. I'm up to a whopping 23 followers at the time of this recording. Pretty sweet. Awesome. So, Commander Ad Populum, what is this? The first official episode? If the one right before this was the launch. Going to get into it a little bit today, but before we do, if you'd like to submit a show topic or a logo like I asked for on the launch episode, you could submit that to cadpopcast@gmail.com. You could get after me on Twitter @cadpopcast or shoot a message over to the Commander Ad Populum Facebook page. Those are all set up now. Those are places that you can find me. And I did set up a Patreon page, and I don't want to be that guy that says, hey, I'm on episode 1, like, go send me money or whatever. But this is the thing. Because I'm a Patreon creator with Commander Cookout, I get all kinds of notifications from Patreon when they're changing their policies or whatever. And one of the things that they've got going on right now is if you don't launch your creator page prior to whatever date that they set out, it's in the beginning of May, then you actually have to pay a higher fee towards them, right? And I wanted to avoid that, so there's not a whole ton there, and I mean, you can go check it out if you want, but if you try and search it, like I tried to search it, I can't even find it. Maybe it's because I don't have any content or posts there yet, but there's nothing there. As that kind of unfolds and Commander Ad Populum starts to air quotes, cost me money with hosting and storage fees for episodes, that's when that's going to come a little bit more alive. So enough of all that. This is Commander Ad Populum, Commander for the people, by the people, for the people. Community submitted topics for me to discuss with myself or with guests, driven by the listeners. And again, you can submit those topics to cadpopcast@gmail.com. That's not where I'm quite going today. I don't think we're quite ready to go there yet. I wanted to talk a little bit about myself. I feel a little bit selfish going into this, but I want to tell everybody who's listening kind of my story. I don't think we've ever really gotten into it on Commander Cookout Podcast, and I want to go into it because my history has very much shaped my life. And this is the exact kind of thing that I want to feature if other people have a similar story or circumstance to me. So I don't want to put a year on when any of this happened, but I know what sets were current or being released, or like when I left Magic and came back into Magic. That's how I'm going to refer to it. So if, like, I know that like the Invasion block was my favorite block because that's right around the time that I started playing. I know that was like in 1999. And I know when I came back into Magic after some number of years of hiatus, it was Lorwyn block and Fairies was really big. And that was like in 2007 or 8, right? So I don't want to put a year on it, but if you know the years that sets were released, you'll have some idea of how long this has taken to come to fruition. So for me, it started way back in, I want to say grade 5 or 6. 5 and 6. Elementary school, I was a Pokemon guy, right? I played with my friends, I traded, I was a collector and all that jazz, right? Because that's what everybody did when they're in grade 5 or 6 or whatever. And, you know, all the cards got banned from schools because kids were getting beat up and all that stuff, right? So that was terrible, but that was where I was at. And somehow my parents had a couple friends who their whole family played Magic. The mom, the dad, the two kids. The two kids were both older than me, 2 boys. And if I was in grade 6, they might have been in like grade whatever, 9, 10. So they were kind of into it, right? Because that's when you kind of get into it if you want to play Magic as somebody who's serious, right? They could drive to their friend's house and stuff. So the boy one day said, hey, I got all these cards. You should come over and take a look at them. If you like Pokemon, maybe you'll like Magic. Okay, fine. I had heard of Magic, right? Because I had bought an Inquest Gamer magazine for the price guide. This is before the days of the internet, right? This is like, whatever, 90, 98, 97, 98 maybe this is when this was. And I know the internet existed then, but nobody used it to price out their Magic cards or Pokemon cards in my case, right? So I go to their house, and I'm a Pokemon guy. I don't really know how to play Magic other than what I've read in Inquest Gamer, how they had those puzzles that you tried to solve, and I was like, what does this do? What is this? Whatever. There's no internet, remember? So I go to their house. I'm looking through all these cards, and I'm picking out ones I like the art of, or I'm picking out like an equal distribution of cards that have white borders and blue borders, black borders, green borders, red borders. And by the end of the night, they're just like, why? You picked out like 100 cards. You've been here for like 3 hours. Why don't you you're taking all of these. It's like 2 shoe boxes full of commons that ranged anywhere from, I want to say 4th or 5th edition, all the way to maybe like Mirage block. So Mirage, Visions, Weatherlight. There's a bunch of Ice Age stuff, Alliances, but like 99.9% just commons and a ton of the same stuff. Cool. So I go home. Me and my dad organized all this stuff the best way we knew how, right? By color, by set, whatever. And then they invited me back again. They said, "Did you learn anything?" And I did. I read, and I went online now and found the comprehensive rulebook, because that's the best way to learn how to play Magic. Fine. I go back. They give me another duffel bag full of cards, like 2 or 3 more shoe boxes, whatever. So me and my dad organized those again, and I at that time went and bought my first booster pack. I think it was a Mirage pack, and it had a sandbar crocodile in it. I remember like, 6.5, that's like whatever, it's the best. I think it's a 6.5. So that's how it started. Fast forward a little bit after I've got all these collections organized and all this jazz, right? And I go to the store, and the dude's like, "Hey, you should buy like these pre-made decks. They've got like a little rules insert in them and stuff. It'll teach you a little bit how to play." So I read that front to back like 85 times to try and learn how to play by myself. I'm mixing in all these cards that I was given. I'm trying to build decks. I don't have very many land, because that was a thing at the time. Packs didn't have land and stuff in it, so you had to like get packs or get land from buying tournament packs. Tournament packs had like 75 cards in them and a pack of land or whatever. So that's Invasion where I'm buying this from, and that's kind of when I started to learn to play. I had a theme deck and a tournament pack and a bunch of stuff that was given to me and a rules insert. And from the rules insert, I was starting to understand what some of the comprehensive rules were trying to say. And self-taught, me and my dad, we taught ourselves how to play Magic, and I'm in grade 6 or whatever, right? And the game's come a long way. I bet you if I took like a shoebox full of cards and a modern day rules insert, or a link to a website or a YouTube link to how to play Magic, I bet you a grade 6 could learn it in a day or less. I learned how to play. It took me like 2 months before I built anything or before I knew anything, right? So that's how it started. And me and my dad found this local group that plays in the basement of this, like whatever it was, this office building downtown. So he came with me a bunch for the first year maybe, just to make sure I wasn't going to get mixed up with the wrong crowd on a random Wednesday night and they were going to kidnap me. So he found that there was like other adults that played this game, right? Guys that worked at, hardware stores, or guys that sold insurance or worked at banks and stuff. And so he was chumming with those, and he learned a lot from them, and he taught me because his capability to learn at the time was way higher than mine, being in his like 30s or 40s or whatever. So that's how I evolved a little bit. And as I grew up, grade 8, grade 9, grade 10, some of these 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade for the people in the United States who say that different, I start finding other guys at high schools or whatever that know how to play. They can drive, they can pick me up. I can go and jam games like on the weekends or whatever, right? So we all become really good friends. And that was true for grade 8, grade 9, grade 10, grade 11, I started to get into athletics in high school, track and fields, football, all those things, and girls, of course, right? And that is kind of how I drifted apart from Magic. This was right after Mirrodin block, like Kamigawa was coming out. Maybe this is the reason I hate Kamigawa so much, is because I lost interest in the game. Partially because of the game, I didn't like Kamigawa. Partially because I had other stuff going on. So Kamigawa block, I air quotes missed. And Time Spiral and Ravnica, right after that, I missed as well. And that's when I came back in Lorwyn. I was like, it was the summer between first and second year university. And I was moving some boxes and stuff in my house that I lived in now with my girlfriend that I met. And the girlfriend that I left Magic to go and be with, I lived with her at the time. So I'm cleaning out the closet in the spare bedroom in the house that we're renting from my parents. And I found my cards and I'm like, oh, I'm going to look some of these up. Like, now the internet exists, right? I can go on and find deck lists and I can build stuff. And I found a guy on the university track team that I was on. He played Magic, so he came over and he destroyed me. He is the anomaly out there when he says, I'm going to come over and play Magic. I've got some like pretty good decks. I'm thinking, okay, he plays in tournaments, or he's like, he's gone to provincials or whatever for playing Magic. No, he comes over and he's got a fully powered vintage deck. I'm not even kidding you. So he lays down, like, he goes, turn 1, Island Mox, something, Gifts Ungiven, searches for Regrowth, Black Lotus, Yawgmoth's Will, and then like Intuition. And I read all these cards because I didn't know not one of them did. And I'm like, oh, so you just get like 2 things and it doesn't matter what I pick, right? I knew this. He goes, yeah. So I just give him 2 things. Like I give him whatever, Yawgmoth's Will and Regrowth to make him spend the maximum amount of mana to get whatever he actually wanted back. So then he intuitions and he does the same thing. I give him a thing and he ditches the other 2. He regrowths for the other one or whatever. And he killed me like turn 3. It's fine. I'm playing like a Saproling deck. So he invites me to cube, right? He invites me over to his house to cube with his buddies. And that was like the first like glimpse into Magic as a whole as I ever got, and this is amazing, and I want to build decks, and I want to build a cube, and all these things, right? So I'm searching everywhere I can to hook back up with guys that I played with in the city that I was from when I played in high school. And I find one of them. He plays at the university with his buddies every, Thursday night. Well, I don't have track practice Thursday night. I'm going to go and meet up with them on Thursdays. And we played together, me and my roommate and him and a couple other dudes, for like a year. And this is like Shards block now. Remember 5-color control, everybody? Remember that was a thing? Yeah, this was then. I get invited by him to, of everybody on the planet's house, whose house did I get invited to? I got invited to Brando's house. And boy, howdy, did I not know what to expect, right? Like, this is a group of guys I've never met. I never played Magic outside of like my own little bubble. Even when I moved cities, I'm playing with the same guys that I played with in high school because that's what I knew. I go to Brando's. And it would just be fate that I'm in the game store like 2 weeks before this. And I'm like sitting down on the floor where the guy's keeping like his box of crappy Lorwyn commons. And I'm digging through the box. Some long hair comes and sits down beside me. And I'm like, hey man, like, I'm trying to make friends, right? Are you looking for something in particular? You want me to help you? And he's just like, no, I'm just looking. And that was mine and Brando's first ever conversation. No, I'm just looking. And that was it. So I'm like, okay, this snobby Magic player, like, this is why I play only with my friends, right? Fast forward a month or whatever, and I'm at Brando's house playing, and it was like 60-4 multiplayer. That's what we played for years and years, because this is Shards block. This is kind of before EDH existed to the general public, right? When it was still on the underground scene. So we played there for years, and that's how I met... If you frequent Commander Cookout podcast, that's how I met F.U. Smitty, F.U. Evan, F.U. Joel, all of these guys. And these guys now have become some of my best friends. So much so that Brando was actually in my wedding party. This long hair, who snubbed me at a game store when I didn't even know who he was and I was just trying to be helpful, ended up being my best man. In my wedding, to the lady that I married was the lady that actually made me leave magic in high school. It all comes full circle. Fate and magic in my life have led me to the place where I am now with regards to my circle of friends and significant other, right? I talk to kind of one guy that I was on the university track team with now. I talked to one of my friends in high school who was my best man at my wedding. I talked to my magic friends every single day. And when I got back into it in Lorwyn and met back up with the guys I played with in high school and was introduced to Brando's group, I haven't stopped since Lorwyn, right? Like when the Planeswalkers were spoiled, that was like the biggest thing ever, right? The Lorwyn 5. So I thought I wanted to share that with everybody to kind of give people a glimpse into how it started for me and the evolution of magic over the years. Like if we're talking about my first pack in Mirage, it was actually a Mirage pack I bought when Masks block was the current block. So it was like an old pack. It was like $4 instead of $5 or whatever. So my dad bought it for me, right? To Invasion, becoming of age in Invasion, let's call it, and learning how to play there. That's why it's my favorite block. To expanding to my high school friends between Invasion, Onslaught, Odyssey, Onslaught, Mirrodin, Kamigawa leaving, coming back in Lorwyn, meeting my new friends in Brando and getting married and having Brando be a part of that. And people say it all the time on Commander Cookout, like, you guys have such a good chemistry. You guys seem like you're just a couple of dudes that we would want in our playgroup, or we could just come and play with you. And that very much is the vibe that we want to give out. And that's the vibe that, we have because we are literally just talking to each other. The way that we talk on Commander Cookout is the exact way that we are in real life. And I wanted to let everybody know that Magic has formed some of the strongest bonds that I have in my life. I think that Magic has strengthened my relationship with my wife. And she didn't even play. Like, I taught her to play, kinda, and she's like, I don't know, it's whatever. She's not into it. She kind of liked D&D a little bit. She likes Settlers of Catan. She likes Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And Magic's not her thing, but she knows that it's my thing. So she gives me my space and the room in the office and a closet just for, you know how collections go, right? They kind of just end up exploding one day and you never look back. So she's great, and I think part of that is Magic. I got one more story before I'm going to move on. There was a time where I was living in Saskatoon. It's like in the middle of the bald prairies in Canada for everybody who isn't from Canada. It's kind of on the western side of the country. I got an offer in another province to go there and do sports for, let's call it the provincial team. Fine. I take my cards with me, a portion of them. Because at this time, I was painting cards. I alter Magic cards. I was painting them as a means to kind of finance the Magic hobby, right? It's expensive. So I take some cards, I take my paints, and I'm painting cards. And I had just bought, Brando and I actually went and just bought some dude's collection. Not the whole collection, we pieced it out, and I ended up spending, get this, $2,500. And this was back in like the Shards block days. So when was that, like 2009 or 10? I can't imagine the cards that I got, what it would have costed me today. Anyways, there was dual lands and legacy stuff and foils and all kinds of crazy cool stuff, right? And I move away from my then girlfriend. Her name's Rebecca, by the way. If anybody doesn't know, her name is Rebecca. Same girlfriend, same wife. And I'm longing, right? I'm living in Calgary. I'm working there part-time. I'm doing sports ball sometime. And I'm painting cards sometime. And altogether, that is my life now. And it isn't really including this girl that has stuck with me ever since high school, right? High school sweethearts, the whole thing. And I'm thinking, wow, well, I've got all these magic cards that since I bought them a year ago have increased in value significantly. And I'm painting cards. I'm living with my auntie for nothing because she's rich. Fine. What am I doing with all this magic card money? Because I don't have time to play. Well, don't I sell a ton of dual lands? Great, right? But just keep listening. And a bunch of legacy staples and fetch lands and altered art cards. And don't I amass a large sum of money? Cool. All cash, right? Don't I think this girl that I miss so bad, I think that I'm going to marry her. I talked to my auntie about it because I've got this large sum of money, but it's not enough to buy an engagement ring, right? Not a big one. I want to buy a big one, right? All in or nothing, right? That's kind of how I operate. So I talk to my auntie and I give her all this cash as like a down payment to buy an engagement ring. And doesn't she, because she knows that I love Magic, like outside of sports that I was doing, it's my passion. So she says, you sold like all your cards to buy Rebecca an engagement ring? She was touched. She was crying, all this stuff, right? And she takes me to the diamond store, the ring store, and she buys the ring. And she takes the cash that I gave her as a down payment. And the reason she buys it is I didn't have enough like cash plus money in my like bank account to buy the whole ring. And I didn't want to pay like the 25% financing fee or whatever. That's too much. And I didn't want to put it on my credit card because then Rebecca would see it because we shared credit cards at the time. We were serious, right? We like everybody knew we were getting married. I just had to buck up and decide, right? And my auntie bought the ring. She took the money, and I said after Christmas when I proposed, this was in like the end of November. So she just floated the cost of my wife's engagement ring for a month and a half. And after I proposed and everybody found out and everybody cried, it was good. I just sent my auntie the money. And she knew through my love of Magic that I was going to be good to pay her back. And she knew through my love of Magic that my marriage would be a good one, a happy one, a lasting one. Because I had liquidated these things that I loved. And I know they're material things and you can get them back and stuff, but you're listening to a Magic podcast. You are attached and invested in Magic. When you offload something that you have put some kind of significant value on, that speaks to the people that are around you. So yeah, we got married. It's good. I paid my auntie back. And now we got a kid. He's upstairs sleeping right now. I'm recording this in Studio CCO. I'm hoping to get 2 episodes in before he wakes up because he's 1 and he's got his own like fat pack box full of cards that are just like destroyed, right? He bites them and bends them and throws them. And MTG dads know what I'm talking about. That's a thing. But not really conducive to record. So that's the story. That's kind of my history in Magic. That's how it's shaped me a little bit. If you have any similar kinds of stories, shoot them to me, cadpopcast@gmail.com, or send me a private message on Facebook. I'd prefer an email because that's easier for me to manage, but it's all there. Or if you just want to say hi, @cadpopcast on Twitter, search me up, give me a follow. If you can find it, like the Patreon page, if you can find it, I don't know what that's about, but I'm not going to get into anything else super in-depth today. I know that on the launch show, I said that there was going to be 3 sections, a community section, and then a technical section, and a retrospective section. I'm still looking to do that, but the retrospection today was the story, right? The story of what sets were current when I was getting in or out of Magic. The technical section for today is going to be regarding the comprehensive rulebook. I don't know if anybody's read it out there, read it front to back like I did when I was like in grade 6 or 7 or whatever. That's the driest stuff on the planet, right? Like it's like reading the Employment Act or some legal document. That's what it's the functional equivalent to. You know what? Here's the thing. I think I read the comprehensive rulebook, I think in total, front to back, on 2 separate occasions. And in my mid 20s is when I started like my first air quotes real job, right? Like a career job. And it was in labor relations, HR, workforce management for a major big construction company. And a lot of that was poring over union agreements, collective agreements, legislative documents that outline employment rights and workers' compensation rights, that kind of stuff, right? I think that Magic very much has helped me like that as well. If that's something that you want to send in, if Magic has affected your career in any meaningful way, positive or negative, I'll even throw that out there, because I'm sure that there is lessons to learn from. They don't call it cardboard crack for nothing, right? It gets a hold of you, and if it's affected your career in some meaningful negative way, if that's something that we can discuss and learn from, that's probably valuable for Commander Ad Populum to share with people. So if that's you, let me know that as well. But anyways, the technical section, the comprehensive rulebook. I would suggest that everybody either have a copy of that saved as a document on your phone, or maybe, I don't know, what's the appropriate frequency? Once a week, if you're trying to improve at Magic, pick a section, pick a topic, pick a paragraph, pick an ability. Just go into the glossary at the end and just find that ability and read up like the official rules on it, and then go to that section in the proper portion of the document and just read it. It's dry. Maybe it'll put you to sleep and you'll be sleeping better as a result, right? You'd be surprised. It could actually help you out quite a bit in gameplay, like maybe understanding how priority works a little bit better in multiplayer, maybe understanding how the stack works. Spell goes onto the stack, who receives priority, who controls a trigger if, you steal a creature, or if you're given a creature, who can respond at what time. And that kind of stuff is invaluable when you're trying to become better at playing multiplayer Magic, because lots of times it's just a crapshoot, right? And people jump priority or whatever. So, comprehensive rulebook. That's my take for the day. If for nothing else, it'll help you sleep better. That's that. I hope that was at least enjoyable for you. Half an hour episode. I'm aiming to shoot for between half an hour and 45 minutes on these. And they're not always going to be me rambling about my story and my crazy rich auntie and my wife, but sometimes they will be. Make sure you tune in for the next episode, where I'm going to be starting the set retrospectives. We're going to be going all the way back, and we're going to be talking about some of the most prolific cards in the early years of Magic that have influenced the game, with a particular eye for EDH. Hopefully by then I'll have a little bit of advice or dialogue or something from somebody who tells me, hey, this sucked, this was great, here's a story. Shoot those into cadpopcast@gmail.com or at cadpopcast on Twitter. If you can find the Patreon page, excellent, thank you. If you can support monetarily, if you can't, that's fine too. Last thing about the Patreon page, if you have one pledge to give and you are already giving to Commander Cookout Podcast, do not stop pledging to Commander Cookout to pledge to Commander Ad Populum. Do not do that. Very important for me that I'm not taking any pledges or any Patreon support away from Commander Cookout, because that show actually costs a significant amount of money. The bandwidth is huge compared to Commander Ad Populum. The giveaways are financed. They're all planned already. So it's important that if you want to pledge but can't afford an additional one without getting rid of one, that the one you get rid of is not Commander Cookout. I know that's a little bit of an awkward thing for me to say or explain, but it's important to me that if you're pledging there, that I thank you, and I thank you for staying there. And if that means Commander Ad Populum does not get your pledge, I'm okay with that. That's it. I'll see you on the next episode of Commander Ad Populum. Maybe you can write in and suggest a sign-out line for me. I don't know. Brando's better at that kind of stuff than I am. I'm just going to say bye.